Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining this session on turbocharging app conversions with Android Pay. I'm Avnish Medituri, a product manager on Android Pay. I'm joined here today by Walter Kakao, software engineer on the Android Pay team. We're here to talk to you today about the state of in-app commerce and some of the challenges we see with in-app commerce, and how Android Pay can help address some of these challenges for sales of physical goods and services in your apps. You'll hear from one of our launch partners, OpenTable, on how Android Pay has enabled richer, streamlined experiences for their users outside of a traditional checkout. And finally, Walter's going to walk you through the Android Pay APIs to show you how easy it is to add fast, streamlined payments to your app with just a few lines of code. So to get started, I want to talk about where we are today with mobile commerce. We've all heard about the potential for mobile commerce through the last few years. But it's exciting that we're now at this inflection point where commerce is going mobile first and leaving online commerce in the dust. It's not to say that e-commerce isn't growing. In fact, in the last year alone, e-commerce grew at about 10%, but m-commerce grew at about 3x that rate. And a lot of that commerce is happening in apps. Over 64% of global smartphone users reported making a purchase in apps. And the in-app commerce is happening in a lot of the traditional shopping and retail apps that you're familiar with on the web, and a lot of that is now moving to apps. But increasingly, a lot of in-app commerce is being powered by innovative platforms, on-demand services, and marketplaces. And you've all seen apps in these categories. They're disrupting high-frequency, high-spend categories like transportation, food and grocery delivery, hotel reservations, hospitality, parking, household services, and a bunch of other categories that I haven't listed here. And you recognize some of the top innovators in each of these categories. And all of these apps, as it turns out, have added Android Pay. So that's the good news, is that a lot of commerce is now happening in apps. But the not so great news is that conversion is still a huge, huge challenge. And if you attended the session today on mobile web and how payment request is solving that, I think the problem is still the same in apps as well. It's the long registration forms, the long checkout forms with over 15 steps to add your full credit card number, your CVC, your expiration date, your full billing address, and if you're shipping somewhere else, your shipping address as well. So it's not surprising that over 55% of users drop out of a mobile checkout flow. If you look at overall cart conversion, it's even lower than 15% on mobile. And a lot of apps today are trying to solve this problem by creating signups, getting people to sign up for an account, saving some of that information so users don't have to enter it again the next time. So what's the problem with that? Remembering passwords. Over 76% of users report forgetting their passwords and having to reset them repeatedly, by the way. So how can we solve this problem? We think Android Pay can help. You can let users check out your app and check out as a guest without having to sign up for an account or use any password. And that's because users already signed into their Google account on their Android device. And with Android Pay, when they click a purchase button in your app, they can easily share their payment and shipping information with the app with just a single click. I'm going to demonstrate here, this is Fancy, one of my favorite shopping apps, and one of the early developers that added Android Pay. Can you switch to Wolf Vision, please? Oh. Right. So I'm going to go to Fancy, and there's this nice Moscow Mule mug that I've been eyeing ever since I created that slide. So I'm going to actually try to buy it now. There, just a single click, and you'll notice how quickly that UI surfaced up there. It's a native UI. It's a new buy flow. If you've actually checked out Android Pay in apps today, it's a slightly different buy flow, but this is a new flow we're going to be coming out with in a few weeks. And again, as developers, when we make these product improvements, you get them for free. There's no reintegration required, so we'll be innovating on the product and improving conversion over time, and as developers, you'll just get these benefits. So I can actually authenticate with my fingerprint here. You'll see that the information's passed back to the app. They've used the shipping. Fancy's used the shipping address to calculate the shipping amount here. And if it looks good, I'm going to go ahead and submit the order. And if my card actually gets successfully approved here, there we go. So Fancy confirmed the order. That's amazing. And what you'll notice is right as they charge my card, there's also a notification from Android Pay with the app logo. And so your users will be taken to an Android Pay rich receipt here. They can see your app logo, and they can open up your app if you want to surface more information about their order, shipping times, etc. Next slide, sir. So you see now Android Pay is actually fast for users. What that means for you as developers is it's going to really increase conversion in your app. And we've seen these from results from like Fancy, for example, that reported over 20% of their orders coming in from Android Pay and 2x the conversion with Android Pay relative to other payment methods in their app. Android Pay is also super easy for developers to integrate. Walter's going to walk you through the APIs in detail, but just as a data point, we hosted hackathons for some of our early developers, and almost all developers are able to integrate Android Pay and do an end-to-end integration with Android Pay in just a few hours. And finally, Android Pay is more secure for everyone in the ecosystem. Secure for users because they don't have to hand out their full credit card numbers to merchants and worry about merchants getting breached. The way we achieve this is something called payment tokenization. So instead of returning the user's actual credit card number, we're generating a virtual account number when a user sets up Android Pay, and that's the number that's shared with merchant apps. Along with that, you'll also get a dynamic security code that ensures that token can be used only once. Merchants benefit from the authentication that we do on users. Users authenticate and set up a device unlock, including fingerprint on supported devices like you saw there. So you've heard from me about the benefits of Android Pay, but I wanted you to hear from one of our close partners and early launch merchants, OpenTable. You may be familiar with OpenTable as a reservations app, but I wanted you to hear how they've enabled rich commerce experiences with Android Pay. So I'd like to invite Mike Huang from OpenTable.
Thanks, Avnish. OpenTable, on behalf of OpenTable, we're really excited to be part of Google I/O. So for those of you who don't know, OpenTable is the world's leading provider of online restaurant reservations. We seat roughly 19 million diners a month across 37,000 restaurants all over the world. And as of, since our date of inception in 1998, we've seated over 1 billion diners globally. What we enable users to do is search and find restaurants based on their availability and provide information such as verified user reviews, menus, and other relevant restaurant information upfront, and allow them to easily book through our mobile apps and sites. And as Avnish mentioned alluded to, we also support allowing users to pay their check through the mobile app. And the goal of payments was really to improve that end of meal experience. And what typical experience is usually starts with the end of the meal, and you request a check from your waiter. Your waiter then goes to the point of sales, prints it out, and then hands you the check, and then you hand your credit card over. The credit card gets run, brings the check back. You have to do some mental math quickly to calculate the tip, and then you finally sign the check. And so with payments on OpenTable, we're really trying to eliminate all those steps except for the last one. So all you have to do now is simply tap to pay. So I think a lot of you can kind of relate with the pain points we're trying to solve with payments. Particularly, for instance, if you were planning a night out, you have dinner and a show or a movie or meeting up with friends, and you've come to the part of the night where you've ended your meal and now you're doing the dance, trying to get the waiter's attention. You make eye contact, you do the whole signing thing in the air, just so you can close out your bill. So my team at OpenTable, we kind of encountered that similar situation when we went out for a team lunch. And you hear a lot of these kind of situations where we went out for a team lunch and we kind of sort of forgot our meeting at 1 o'clock. And we were running late, so we were able to tell our waiter, hey, we're going to pay with OpenTable. So you see all 5 of us get up and walk out the door, and we just simply tap to pay. And that really makes that seamless and streamlined experience really relevant. But as Avnish mentioned before, getting set up with pay, there are some necessary evils, like when getting our users set up for payments, you need to have a payment method. So it typically involves adding a credit card number, expiry date, CVC, zip code, and we also ask for a phone number to verify your identification. So then we'll send you a code, and then once you're verified, you're finally set up for payments. And as you can see, it involves a pretty complicated process, a lot of friction involved. But with Android Pay, you really eliminate all of these kind of hiccups in the steps to get set up. So all you really have to do is have your device set up for Android Pay, and we'll recognize that you are properly set up, and we'll automatically set you up for payments. So all you have to do is make a reservation and pretty much enjoy your meal. At the end of your meal, you'll get your check on your phone. You'll be able to choose a tip amount, and don't worry, we'll help you calculate it. And all you have to do is tap on Android Pay. And as Avnish was mentioning before, you'll get a push notification confirming that your card has been charged. And with the added bonus of being an Android Pay, you get to see this charge along with all your Android Pay transactions in the Android Pay app. So at OpenTable, we really truly believe that with payments with no cash or cards exchange hands, you're really free to enjoy the moment. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Walter, who will walk you through how to get your app set up.
Thank you, Mike. So now let's see how you can add Android Pay to your app in less than 20 minutes. OK, so first let's go through an overview of the Android Pay APIs that you need to call in order to add Android Pay to your app. Usually when the user goes through a checkout experience using Android Pay, they will go through 3 major steps. The first one is they will see the Android Pay button or some option to select Android Pay. Then they will click that option and be prompted by us for a credit card and shipping address if you request one. And finally, when they're ready to finish the purchase, you can request a payment credential from us to charge the user. OK, so all these 3 steps, they are actually mapped one-to-one to the APIs that we show here. The first API is called isReadyToPay, and it will return you a Boolean indicating if the user has set up Android Pay in that device. And we highly recommend you to optimize the user experience in case we return true in this API, because it will lead to a faster checkout and overall better experience. Example of the optimizations could be you could make the Android Pay option be the default one, especially on guest checkout flows. Now, once you have shown the Android Pay option and the user has clicked, the next step is to actually call the load mask wallet API, which will prompt the user for their card and the shipping address they want to use. And at the end, we'll return you some masked information. Now, the reason why we call this masked information is actually that it doesn't contain the full payment credential, so you can't really charge the user at that point in time. But you have enough information to render a review order screen. So you have something for the card, you'll see Visa 1234, and you would also have the shipping address, so you can adjust the cart with sales tax or provide the user with different shipping options depending on where they live, and so forth. And finally, when they are ready to finalize the purchase and they have confirmed in your UI, you can call the load full wallet API here, the third one, and get a payment credential that you can hand over to your processor and charge the user. OK, now let's get to some code. So just want to note that all the APIs that we're going to talk here, they are already part of the Google Play Services client library. So you can start integrating today if you want to. Now let's talk about the first API that we mentioned, isReadyToPay. So this API returns a Boolean indicating if the user has Android Pay set up on that phone. And it's just a simple API call. You receive the result in an asynchronous callback. And once that result comes true, we highly recommend you to optimize your experience just like OpenTable and Fancy did. Now, you know that you need to show the Android Pay option. So how can you show it? We actually have made it really easy for you to add an Android Pay by button with something that we call the wallet fragment. So the wallet fragment is just a regular Android fragment that renders this nice looking button that you see over here. And there are some nice advantages to using it. So the first one is this actual Android Pay logo asset. It ships with Google Play Services APK, so it doesn't occupy any space on your app. And they are fairly high resolution assets. Also, the button is highly stretchable, so it can fit a variety of layouts. And the by with text there is translatable. So if you have a user in a Spanish locale, they will actually see this text translated. And also, it contains default click listeners. So when the user clicks on this button, it will do the load mask wallet API that we talked about for you. So overall, it will just make your integration simpler. And we highly recommend you to use it if your flow has a checkout button like this. Now, we know there are several kinds of purchase experiences over there. So if your checkout doesn't have a checkout button like this, you are free to call the load mask caller API yourself. But if you're using a button like this, we highly recommend you to use the wallet fragment. OK, so now how you use the wallet fragment? It's basically 3 simple steps. The first one, as you can see here, is to create the wallet fragment. The second one is to initialize it with the mask caller request, so it can call the load mask caller API on your behalf and prompt the user for the card and shipping information. And the last step is to add it to your layout as you would add any other fragment through Fragment Manager and a fragment transaction. OK, so let's dive a little deeper on the mask caller request. So the mask caller request contains several parameters that can be used to customize our flow to the needs of your app. The only 3 required ones are the ones shown here in the screen. The first one is the currency code. The second one is the estimated total price. And the third one is the tokenization parameters. Now, tokenization parameters are an interesting kind of parameter. So they actually specify how you will receive the payment credential at the end of your flow. There are 2 ways that you can receive a payment credential with Android Pay. The first one, if you are already using vaulting services from Stripe, Braintree, or Ventev, you can actually have us vault the payment credential for you and return you a vaulted token that you can charge as you would charge any other vaulted credential with these services. But there is a second way, that is the one actually showed here in the slides, where you can receive the payment credential directly in an encrypted form with a key that you specify in the tokenization parameters. Later on, you will need to decrypt or send to one of our supported processors for do the decryption for you and charge the user. But we'll get to that later on. Now, besides these 3 required parameters, there are also some optional parameters that you can use to customize our flow to meet the needs of your app. So you can request shipping. You can say if you need a phone number. You can say you can have us actually filter out the cards that you don't support. For example, if you don't support prepaid cards, you can specify in the request. And this provides a highly customizable UI for your flow. OK, now let's just recap. The user has saw the Android Pay button. They have clicked on it. They have selected a card and a shipping address. And they are finally ready to commit and finish the purchase. So what's the next step? It's actually to charge the user. And to do that, you need to request a payment credential from us. And to do that, you call our last API called full wallet. And to call that API, you need what we call the full wallet request. The full wallet request is this nice little object here that receives only 2 parameters, basically. The first one is the Google transaction ID, which is just an identifier that is generated by the previous call. And you just need to forward it to the second call to be able to complete it. And the second one is the card containing the total price and the currency code. Now, once you call load full wallet in the last line here, when the result is ready for you, it will be delivered through the onActivity result callback in your activity. And you can just check the request code that you passed in the call and extract the full wallet out of the intent extras. And finally, out of the full wallet, you can get the payment token that you can later send to your processor for charging the user. Now, let's just dive a little deeper on what the payment token actually looks like. So the payment token, in the case where you receive the payment credential directly encrypted, is just this nice little JSON blob containing a bunch of keys related to our encryption scheme. Not all that interesting, but there are some interesting things to be said actually about the decrypted response that you can see in the next slide. So there are actually 2 fields here that I would like you guys to pay attention to. The first one is the DPEN. The second one is the 3DS cryptogram. So the DPEN it actually stands for device personal account number. And as you can see, it looks like a credit card, but it's not really a credit card. It even passes the loan check to be as a curiosity. Now, when a user adds a card to Android Pay, the payment networks and the issuers, they generate this number called the DPEN, and that gets associated with your phone, and that's actually what gets charged. And this number has pretty much no relation with the real user's credit card number, which provides some nice security properties of Android Pay. For example, if you lose your phone, there is no need for you to reissue your card and cancel your previous card because your credit card number was not compromised at all. Now, the other interesting field is the 3DS cryptogram. which is basically a replacement for the traditional CVV that you see in the back of your card. It's a dynamically generated security code, and we use it to provide this nice second property about the Android Pay security model, which is this payment credential that you see here can only be charged once. And this is a huge advantage compared to a normal credit card, because if you lose your credit card number, it can just be charged multiple times. Okay, now we have talked about how you can call the APIs and how you receive this encrypted token. Now, you can decrypt the token yourself, but we highly recommend you to use the services of our supported processors. They will take care of generating the keys, managing the keys, and doing the decryption for you. So I highly recommend you to check their documentation because they will just make your life easier. Now I'm going to head over and turn it over to Avnish for him to complete.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Walter. As Walter said, you can actually work with any of these payment providers. Come see us if you don't see your payment provider listed here, and we can tell you how to actually get Android Pay set up on your app and going. So the last few months, we've worked with several merchants to onboard Android Pay in their apps and see how the integration looks. And we're now excited to announce that Android Pay is available to all developers selling physical goods and services in all of the markets that Android Pay is supported. We've launched in the US, and we recently announced that we've launched in the UK as well. We're coming soon to Australia and Singapore. So again, we're excited to have developers add Android Pay to their app. You can check out Android Pay in any of these select apps that have added Android Pay to see how they've created better experiences, better checkouts for their users. In terms of what's next, if you haven't had a chance to actually go see the live code labs, you can actually go to the online code labs here. We also are fully documented on developers.google.com. So check out our documentation. Come see us right after the session as well if you have any questions. So, thank you, everyone.